Thanks, Philip, and welcome to Today in Putnam County. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're having a great weekend. My goal with the show is to interview our community leaders that help make Putnam County a great place to live, work, and raise your families. My first guest today is Mr. John Story, longtime banker here in Cookeville, who's currently with the Bank of Putnam County. Good morning, John.
Good morning, Randy.
Thanks for being here. I appreciate you doing the show.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Just had a great event in Monterey recently that Bank of Putnam County was responsible for. I attended and new facility in Monterey. I have never seen that many people in the town of Monterey. Did we get a count?
The EMS folks did some kind of estimate. I don't know how they do it, but they estimate between 10 and 11,000 people. And for a town with a population of approximately 2,500, that's quite incredible, you know.
So we acquired folks from surrounding counties that came to Monterey. I've lived here for 40 years, and I've never seen that many people in Monterey. What a great day. And we're talking about the grand opening of a new facility, Bank of Putnam County facility in Monterey. Takes up a whole city block, John?
It does. It's an entire city block. This has been under construction since last year, and it's actually with the acquisition of a new bank that we purchased recently in East Tennessee. Monterey's become the central footprint of our territories, and so this was very timely. And actually, we had already planned to build the building before we bought the East Tennessee properties, so this worked out really well.
So what all's going to go in the building in Monterey? I know it's going to be a kind of the central footprint for the Bank of Putnam County. I think you told me that if you kind of draw a circle around Monterey to all your other locations, it's for everybody to drive to. It's going to be the easiest location for everybody to get to. But what's going to be housed in the new facility?
Really, it's designated as a loan production facility. And so there's a tremendous amount of regulatory requirements now when a bank makes a loan. In the old days, when I first started, you made a loan and you cut a check and you put the file in a file cabinet and away you went.
I remember my grandfather going to the bank, borrowing money to put our crops out each year. I don't remember him ever signing anything. That was when I was a kid. I got to go with him, and he shook hands with the bank president, and he put the money in his account, and he came and he paid it back after sold the crops. Those days are gone.
Oh my goodness, yes, they sure are. And the paperwork is many times fold over what it was when I started. And so it takes a dedicated and highly trained crew to facilitate putting these loans in the proper places they're supposed to be, because when the examiners come in, that's what they want to see. And so all of the loans made in all of our offices will filter to this Monterey facility and be inspected there and make sure that all the documentation is correct and all the T's are crossed and I's dotted and signatures in place and those types of things.
Beautiful building. Like I said, takes up a city block. But the central part of that is you saved the old, what I would call the old storefront
Yes.
of the original Bank of Monterey to make it part of this building. And folks may not know, but Bank of Monterey, which was established back in 1901, I think,
Yes.
is one of the oldest businesses that there is in Putnam County.
Yes.
And you save that storefront to make it part of this. That's historical preservation, I believe we'd call that, wouldn't it?
It really is, and it was an amazing feat about how they actually stored that front with steel beams and so on, and then tore the rest of the building away from it. And actually that was the second building. The first building of 1901 was diagonally across the street, and it burned around 1920.
Okay.
And then that one, we call it the 1920 building. So it was in existence there and was used as the Bank of Monterey until the mid-60s, and they built the office that's there today.
So, and I think from one of the historians told me that the Bank of Monterey was one of the few banks that survived the Great Depression in this area back then.
It did, and you know, that meant a great deal to like my grandparents, their generation. They would come closer to doing business with a bank that had survived the Depression. and also even my parents' generation would recognize that.
Right.
But yeah, when you've got a bank that that survives, the Great Depression, 2 World Wars, and just countless and countless other tremendous economic factors that's happened throughout the ages, that says a lot for the standing of the Bank of Putnam County.
I think so too, and we have to give credit where credit's due. Mr. Jack Ray, great visionary when it comes to the banks and his family, the Ray family. You start tracing the history back of Bank of Putnam County. Actually started here it started in Monterey with the Bank of Monterey, but it came to Cookeville back in the middle 70s, I think, and the first bank was actually the one on Willow, which is still open today, the Bank of Putnam County.
That is correct. Jack had the vision of bringing a bank to Cookeville and chartered the Bank of Putnam County. It was a separately chartered bank initially from the Bank of Monterey. And a couple of years later, they acquired what had been known as the Bank of Cookeville over on South Jefferson, and it was a larger building, so they put the main office facility there and kept Willow as a branch, and they also then merged Bank of Monterey into the Bank of Putnam County, and the rest is history.
So that all started really the Bank of Putnam County, and it's been amazing at all the things that have happened since then. And I wrote down some of the history. Back in '86, I think you purchased the Cumberland County Bank.
Yes.
So all of a sudden now, you're not just in Putnam County, you're spreading out into other counties, and that didn't stop. I've been amazed. '89, the Bank of White County; 2000, the Bank of Overton County; 2014, a new branch in Monterey; 2015, the Bank of Fentress County; 2016, the Clark Range Bank. And I just heard that you've acquired 5 more branches, and you're all the way up into Wartburg, is that
Yes,
correct?
yes, that's correct. Wartburg, Oneida, Oliver Springs, Oak Ridge, Harriman, and Kingston.
That's amazing in that short a time frame when you look from the middle 70s to now, the way that Bank of Putnam County has expanded. And the Ray family has played a big part in banking in Putnam County for many years now, and kudos to Mr. Jack Ray and the whole family, because a lot of the family members are playing a big part in Bank of Putnam County today with its expansion and growth as it continues to grow. You're listening to Today in Putnam County on News Talk 107.7 and 1400 The Hub. I'm County Mayor Randy Porter, your host. More with John Story when we come back. Please stay with us. Welcome back to Today in Putnam County. I'm your host, County Mayor Randy Porter. Hope you're having a great weekend. My guest this morning is John Story. He's with Bank of Putnam County. We've been talking about the great event that was held in Monterey recently with the opening of the new facility in Monterey. Bank of Putnam County is growing by leaps and bounds, John, and you're not new to banking. I've known you for a long time, and give us a little history of John's story and where you started at and how you made it to where you are today.
Well, I started in 1975. Got a call from my good friend Gary Whitehead. He was recently, at that time, he was freshly hired at the old First National Bank of Cookeville. It was on the square, on the corner there. And he asked me if I'd be interested in coming to work in a collection department capacity. He was putting together a collection department at the bank. And he introduced me to a later mentor, Tommy Lynn.
Mr. Tommy Lynn.
Mr. Tommy Lynn, one of the greatest, absolutely. And he graciously saw something and gave me a job. And it was acquired by First Tennessee, and continued working on there. And so I went from doing collection work for a couple of years to a junior loan officer and installment loan manager and so on and so on.
Right.
And I never really thought I would stay in banking for some reason, and I wasn't even sure I would stay in Cookeville. People who graduated college with me were going to Nashville and Knoxville looking for opportunities. Bigger cities, yeah. And one thing led to another, and I would get a call and somebody would say, "Come on over, we want to talk about hiring you." And so I went from here to there, and I went to Tennessee Savings. I went to actually had the honor of opening the First National Bank of Livingston branch here.
Were you at Tennessee Savings and Loan?
Yes.
just posted a picture last night of the building there in the Town Plaza Shopping Center there in
Yeah.
Jefferson. And I don't know, was that a branch or was that?
That was the main office.
That was the main
When
office.
I went to work there, yes.
Wow.
We didn't have a drive up. We didn't have a night deposit. We didn't have anything.
You started from scratch.
It was scratch. It surely was. And but yes, that's where it started. And then we went over to Willow Avenue, and Mr. Hugh Bassell
Yes.
built a new concept that he'd come up with called Weatherbuilt,
Yes.
and built us a new building over there. And Mr. Noble Cody was chairman of the board, and I had a great group to work with. And
Absolutely.
and so after about 7 years there, I was called by Millard Oakley and said, I want to bring First National Bank of Livingston to Cookeville. And you being a former Livingston boy, it's kind of a natural fit, I think. And so I did that, and enjoyed getting back to some of the folks there in Overton County a lot, and opened for a First National Bank here. And then I did a little brokerage work for about 11 years in the securities business, and that was a great experience. Learned a lot, and then one day, it's funny how things return. Gary Whitehead calls me
He
again.
calls you again.
Calls me
Okay.
again, and says, "Hey, I thought about you. We've got this business development position open over here at Bank of Putnam County, and here I am. 14 years later, I'm still here.
Still here, but back at the Bank of Putnam.
Bank of Putnam County, yeah.
That's great. What a great success you have been in banking. Great history with Cookeville and Putnam County, and you not only, I know you've enjoyed being in banking, but you've been a great community leader also. One thing folks may not know about you in the May is that you served on the WCTE Channel 22 board for many, many years. Back in its infancy,
Yes.
when it was getting started, that had to be exciting watching a TV station come to Cookeville.
Well, it really was, and when you take folks like Dick and Donna Castle, and I remember Becky McGurran when she started there, and so on, and it was a tough operation. It was like pinching a penny in two and trying to make a nickel out of
If
it.
they ever survived.
Oh yeah, and we had some great folks in Nashville, Tommy Burks and Jerry Hargrove, and lots of others who really fought for the station in those days, and still continue to, the legislators we have there for funding. And there were times when a check came in at the twilight hour that kept it on
Perfect
the air.
timing.
Kept it on the air. Yeah, sure, yeah.
Well, the TV station has meant so much to Cookeville, Putnam County, and the whole region. Being able to have a public television station here is, places I know across the country would give up their eye teeth to have that, to what we've had. It's been a great success, and you've been a great part of that. Channel 22 seems to be thriving now with not the same financial problems that it had back then. It's grown, and Becky's done a great job, and the board's done a great job. Like Putnam County, same way, it's been thriving and everything. Where do you see, I know Bank of Putnam County keeps expanding, where do you see the next thing happening with Bank of Putnam County? Are we going to continue to grow?
Yeah, we're actually, when we acquired the East Tennessee properties, the Kingston location had a loan production office, and so we are in process now of breaking ground to build a full-service office in Kingston.
In Kingston?
Yes.
Wow.
And so that will be one of our next big projects, and we hope to have that completed by about this time next year. And somebody in the bank, well, my boss said, I want you to reproduce the Monterey grand opening in Kingston.
That'll be hard to do.
That might be hard to do. but anyway, that will be one of our next big steps, is getting Kingston completed. And who knows after that? But there's no question that that the interest is always there to grow into new territories and explore and see what we can do. And we enjoy it. It's obvious. Mr. Jack enjoys it.
Absolutely. And to stay locally owned.
Yes.
Is that difficult with all the, you see all the mergers and the buyups and everything going on in the banking industry? Is it difficult to stay locally owned?
I think so. Because you know, there's so much temptation out there to sell. I mean, when owners of a bank, and I have been with a bank that, or a financial institution that has been purchased, it's happened to me 4 times.
Wow, your career.
Yeah, and so, you know, there's so much money that could be made by, you know, selling a financial institution, but I am totally convinced that the Ray family has no ideals of doing that at all. And
I agree with you, and I think it's not all about the money with them, it's about community and
Yes.
what the services that they're able to provide to Putnam County. John, thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you, Randy. Thank
You do a great job. I'm still amazed at the event you had in Monterey with all the Bank of Putnam County did, and for that many people to come out.
We are too.
It was a great day. I appreciate your friendship and appreciate you being here this
Same
morning.
here, Randy. Thank you.
Mr. John Story with the Bank of Putnam County. You're